Let's start right away with Maria del Carmen Garcia, a kind woman and loving mother from the province of Alicante, who, however, became a bad criminal as a result of a street encounter. As Garcia was walking down the street on an ordinary day in 2005, she found Antonio Cosme suddenly in front of her. Cosme had been convicted years earlier for something he did to Garcia's teenage daughter, Veronica. When Cosme, returning to freedom, showed no sign of remorse and even asked Garcia about her daughter, the mother's nerves flared. While Cosme went on his way again and met with friends at a bar, Garcia rushed to the nearest gas station. There, the 52-year-old bought a can full of petrol and also headed for the bar where Cosme was. She walked purposefully towards him, doused him with petrol, and seconds later, set him on fire. Cosme's skin sustained 90% burns, which is why he succumbed to his injuries in the hospital a few days after the crime. Garcia was arrested by police officers the same day, and, although she regretted taking a man's life, she was happy that her daughter no longer had to fear. After several trials, Garcia was subsequently sentenced to 5.5 years in prison in 2013. She was released from prison in the summer of 2018. Gary Plosh committed a similarly violent act when he learned what his karate teacher had done to his youngest child, Jody. For this case, which took place in the US, we go back to 1983, when the Plosh family from Louisiana met the seemingly friendly karate instructor Jeff Doucet. He gained the family's trust to such an extent that Jody's mother entrusted Doucet with her son, as he was also a respected member of the community. Doucet took the boy to his car and promised to return in a few minutes. However, Doucet and the then 11-year-old Jody did not return. Instead, Doucet kidnapped the boy and drove him to different cities. Doucet held the boy for a full 10 days until he was finally captured several thousand miles away from Louisiana. Fortunately, Jody was rescued alive and returned to his parents, where the whole truth came out. Months before the kidnapping, Doucet had already attacked his 11-year-old karate student. However, Jody was too scared to tell anyone and kept his mouth shut when Jody's father found out about all this. He wanted to get revenge on Doucet. So he was waiting for him at the airport when he landed back in Louisiana to stand trial for his actions. Armed and disguised in a hat and sunglasses, Plosh waited in a phone booth for the right moment for Doucet to arrive with the cops and pull the trigger. As heard in the clip, one of the officers, who knew Plosh, was completely taken aback by what the father did and kept asking, "Why, Gary? Why?" Doucet did not survive the targeted attack. Plosh later ended up in court, where he was sentenced to 7 years probation and 300 hours of community service. For the next case, we go to Mexico. There, a father named Eduardo Gallo caused a stir and achieved hero status by doing everything he could to track down his daughter's kidnappers. In 2000, 25-year-old Paula Gallo was attacked and kidnapped by a criminal gang at her parents' country house. The kidnappers then extorted $18,500 from Eduardo Gallo, as well as all the jewelry in the family's possession. After the successful delivery, Eduardo hoped he could embrace his daughter again, but to no avail. A week later, police found the lifeless body of the young Mexican woman. Gallo fell into deep mourning for the loss of his beloved daughter. As the police had no real clues as to who exactly might be behind the crime, Gallo decided to trade his grief for perseverance to track down his daughter's killers. He also discovered that 90% of kidnapping cases in Mexico go unreported, as the victims and their families are too afraid of the gangs responsible. More than a year passed, during which Gallo camped on the streets and watched everything. And so one day, he suddenly found the decisive clue. In an intercepted phone call that took place shortly after the crime against Paula, Gallo was able to identify 28-year-old Francisco Zamora Arellano, who was arrested by police shortly afterward and ended up in jail for the crime against Paula. Gallo not only secured justice, but also found some peace of mind, knowing that his daughter's killer was finally behind bars. Now we come to a single mother from London who walked over dead bodies for her children. When Sarah Sands discovered that her supposedly friendly neighbor Michael Pleasted had become too close to her son, she made a momentous decision. She took courage, grabbed a knife, got into the elevator, and rang the 77-year-old's doorbell, ending his life on November 28, 2014. She then called the police herself and said she lost control after Pleasted denied the allegations and even laughed in Sands' face, claiming her son was lying. Sands ended up spending 7 years behind bars for her violent crime. In hindsight, however, it turned out that Pleasted was not innocent. The Englishman had been responsible for atrocities similar to those committed against Sands' son for several decades, and had therefore already served several years in prison. However, he used the name Robin Molt, which he changed when he was released from prison to Michael Pleasted. Sandra Sands, who has since served her sentence, is now campaigning to ban criminals in England from changing their names. The next father also decided to take the law into his own hands and avenged his daughter's abuser several years later. But let's start at the beginning. For when Kalinka Bambursky was found lifeless in her bed on the morning of the 10th of July, 1982, her father, Andrei Bambursky, could not shake off the thought that, contrary to the investigation, it might not just be a natural death, but a real crime. It should be noted that Kalinka was a child of divorce and lived not only with her father in France, but also with her mother in Germany. At the time of her death, the girl was on a summer holiday with her mother. She was living on Lake Constance with her new partner, Dieter Krombach. The post-mortem examination organized by Bambursky revealed that Kalinka did not die naturally, but as a result of an extremely strong anesthetic. There were also clear indications that a male assailant had previously attacked the girl. Suspicions immediately fell on stepfather Krombach, who as a doctor was able to supply anesthetics of this kind. However, as Kalinka was a French national, the case did not go to a German court, but to a French court, where Krombach was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Due to a procedural error, Krombach could not be extradited to France despite his proven murder and remained free. Andrei Kalinka, the girl's father, could not accept this, so he did something violent, hiring a pair of men who attacked and kidnapped Krombach in his own home. Wounded and gagged, the men then threw the German in front of a French court, where he was found the next morning. As a result, Krombach ended up serving his sentence in a French prison, and Bambursky got the justice he had been waiting for over 20 years. That was our video for today. Leave a like if you found it interesting and subscribe.